This video is brought to you by Midway USA. Support the channel by choosing Midway for your shooting and outdoor supplies.
The URG-I. URG-I? Yeah, the URG-I. Stuff that I never got to use when I was in. Just got to look at these things.
All right. I'm on at 150.
All right.
Impact. Wow, stacked rounds, nice.
Okay.
200. Impact. Impact.
Is that center cluster?
Yeah. Come up.
It was a little low.
Come up half a target length. Okay, I was upper chest. Okay, we're on at 300. Impact. Just left of center, just above the center line. Impact, stacked them, nice.
Just left of center though.
It was left of center, yep.
It's really weird. The wind is coming this way. Is it not coming left to right?
I'm able to see mirage downrange traveling right to left on some of these targets, and then further downrange, I can see it coming left to right.
That's great.
Yes, a delightful and exciting day of wind. Okay, I'm on at 350.
Okay, ready?
Yes, sir. Dead center, send another. Impact.
Nice, okay.
Second impact was in his upper left shoulder. First one was dead on.
Okay. So I'm holding 2 mils flat.
Okay.
This one I'm just gonna give it a little bit more. Basically like more like 2.2.
Yeah, two mils at the neck, basically.
Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah.
Okay. We are good. We're good. We're on at 400. Favor right quarter target. Nice.
Was that centered or
Yep.
did it go off?
No, it was good. I mean, it was just right of center, but barely. You know?
Okay.
And that first one was left edge of the plate.
All right.
All right, this one's half in shadow. You gonna take him?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give him 3 mils. Favor right.
Yep. Dead center, send another. Impact, nice.
Nice.
Okay, I'm on at 5. Upper chest impact, good windage. Impact.
That
Henry,
is a clean run for a service rifle with optics. So this is the first service rifle with optics for a clean run. Now you know what that means, Josh. If
more shooting.
Yes, but we should do the bonus round first, and then we could shoot more, shall we?
Well, what's the bonus round?
The final target of the range, as fast as you could plug 5 rounds into it and see how many hits.
Okay.
So you ready for the thunder round?
Stand by. Stand by. Observers on. High over his left shoulder. Impact. 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 Impact.
Did I give him an extra one?
You did.
Oh, well, sorry. So, yeah, so the M4
More shooting.
URGI
More
setting
shooting.
very high standards for anyone who comes afterwards. This beat out, by the way, the HK416.
More shooting.
Okay, got it. More shooting. Got it.
More
Let's go.
shooting. All right,
What are we
I'm on
looking
at
at?
650.
650, the gong.
Yeah, at the gong, just behind the two targets that you were previously engaging.
Okay. Ready.
You got, what's your hold on this?
6 mils.
Fire when ready. Impact. Yes, Henry. Whoa. I got.
That was
that
another
sounded
impact.
like a hit, but I got off glass. I wanted to come and congratulate you for hitting 650.
That was another impact. I mean,
I know.
how?
What do you think it would be at 725?
I mean, this is not a DMR, though, you know? It certainly has a lot of characteristics of what we see a DMR have. I don't know. Let's see what happens
Hold
at
on.
725.
Let me just check. Just a second. All right, you said you were at about six mils there.
Yeah, 6 mils. I mean, it's gonna be. It's starting to. Was this a 14.5?
Yes.
Bro, this is gonna get rough. I'm gonna drop like 8 mils. Favor, right?
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say, why don't we start 7.5 here?
Nah, let's do 8.
Okay.
Give him more gas.
Okay. Okay. Give him the gas. Good call on 8.
Can't stop, won't stop. I mean, US SOCOM, freaking good, banging job on choosing a service rifle, right?
Wow.
I have a sneaking suspicion that the XM5 will not be on SOCOM's menu.
Bang, 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 baby.
I mean, there's only one miss, and it was on the bonus round, and that was just to cite that, you know, like, it was off. And then I plugged them with 5. Like, the lethality of this thing. And still, I'm seeing movement. With 77s, I'm seeing movement on the plates, with 55s is... All right, let's just... I don't know. Should we just reel back the excitement just a little bit?
All right.
This is a
All right.
clean course clear. Ironically, we already have a clean course clear with iron sights, but not
Not with
but not with optics. I am a little bit lost for words.
All right, well, let's really quickly here just consider what we've got going on. We should give the history of this rifle, but let's do that. Let's save that for the debrief.
Okay.
Let's just talk about what this is and why we think you were able to achieve what you were able to achieve. So this is a full Geissele URG-I.
Correct.
It has a Night Force ATACR with the updated reticle, which has it's more refined than their previous rendition or revision of it, or their previous version.
By the way, now that I picked it up, this is cooking where we don't have slate grips back here, where the receiver extension is. Yeah. This is cooking right now.
Yeah. I mean, we just hammered, it was only one mag, too. Think about that, right?
Oh, I haven't reloaded.
Yeah.
Sooty! This is worse than sooty. I'll show you guys later on. This is disgusting.
But yeah, this is basically one mag, right? So again, you have to remember that the system, especially suppressed, it's gonna run hot.
Yeah.
And it's gonna run hot.
Yeah.
But we're shooting 77s, you have a full mill tree, should be able to, I mean, look, the difference, and this is relevant, the difference between clearing with one miss or no misses is kind of irrelevant in my opinion.
Right.
I don't think that represents a major difference. Even if you miss once or twice on the way out, on like windage or something like that, if you can correct, then fine. But it's exciting to see it actually go out and clear.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people, when they look at the URG-I, you know, affectionately known as the Block III, even though it's not officially called the Block III, because of course with the M4, you bring over the Block 1? Because with the M4A1, we have the first iteration that SOCOM had updated it to, which is a Block 1. And then we have the Block 2 we don't have on screen right now.
Yeah,
but,
we can roll it over.
We can roll it. And then we have the Block 3. The major update between the Block 1 and the Block 2 was a rail system and free-floating the front for the late Block 2s, the non-FSP. Now, after that, it may, to many people, it may just look like, oh, this is just an M-lock front. That is not it. They also extended the gas system in order to get a little bit more of a gentle cycling on it. And quite frankly, suppressed, that was a very pleasant recoil sensation on a suppressed rifle.
Yeah.
On a Block 2, when you suppress it, it gets a little bit more violent than that. It was still slightly overgassed, but it wasn't terribly overgassed. And this is a traditional suppressor. And so pushing it out, hammering that 500-yard bonus round target, very easy. Sighting system, crystal clear, very easy to use. I mean, it is like decades of refinement of this system and turning into one of the most lethal packages ever. And of course, leave it up to U.S. Army procurement to ask for something that is neither this system and takes none of this lineage to further the next generation. But I digress. I think you guys know where I stand on the NGSW, but you know, as far as SOCOM goes, it is no mystery to me that SOCOM would land on something so freaking good. Like, it is just knockout, drag out, taking an M4 to the next level, and quite frankly, in my opinion, is what we should have gone as a next generation project anyways. I don't know. Anything to add? I mean...
No, I definitely want to talk about all of the equipment that is on this rifle, because there is a ton of stuff on the gun.
There is a lot of stuff. As per usually, Josh's shit is just like loaded down with like Christmas ornaments and stuff.
Yes.
Useful, but...
yeah, I think we ought to talk through like why those things are there, what they are there to, what purpose they serve and whatnot, as well as the history of this further in the debrief.
Nah, Josh, back in my day...
Yes.
Back in my day...
Why you got all them stuffs hung off that there rifle?
Well, at least we're shooting it in a proper, M81. But on that note, anything else? We'll catch you guys at the debrief. Nice. Oh, hello there. You must have caught me freshening up the 9-hole Reviews Mark 12. Now, did you know the 9-hole Reviews is largely supported by Slate Black Industries and the patrons of Patreon? That's true. All those 77 OTMs, all those heartbreaks and range fees that we experience. Behind us, we have the patrons of Patreon, who support us not only financially and intellectually, but emotionally. So today I'd like to invite you to become one of us. Join us on Patreon and become a patron of Patreon. And if not, completely understand. We'd be just as happy to hear from you in the comments section down below. But for now, onwards we go.
Welcome into the debrief. That was the Geissele URG-I 14.5-inch upper, fully decked out, might I add, right? Night Force on there, suppressor on there, done up to the nines. But Henry, was this probably one of the easiest runs that you've had on the show?
I mean, were you surprised?
I mean, kind of. I wasn't surprised that it cleared 500, obviously. I think we've done enough shooting now. You put 77s on a quality AR build from any number of manufacturers. A quality AR build shooting the 77s with an LPVO, with holds, you're going to be able to clear this course without too much issue. But I personally was surprised to see, I mean, you aced it, and then you aced the 500 quickfire, and then you slammed 650, and you were so in tune on this thing that you even corrected the mill call I gave you at 750 or whatever we were shooting, where you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna do 8." I was like, "You sure?" I'm like, maybe 7.5 based off of what the dope table was telling us. You're like, "No, this is an 8," and then free, bing, for a shot.
Yeah, I think the reason I was giving it a little bit more was because I was thinking about the 14.5 barrel, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, when they're looking at this, it doesn't necessarily, because it's the rail extends all the way to the end, so it's actually fairly difficult to tell how long the barrel is just looking at it. And so a lot of people assume that it's a 16-inch barrel, or even
especially
whatever.
with the can, right?
Yeah.
Especially you throw the can on, it's really hard to tell what length it is.
But in reality, it is the same exact length as a bone stock M4 Block I, right? 14.5, a better gas system, but it's essentially, you're looking at a design that was relatively unchanged from the 1960s design that Eugene Stoner came out with. Right, the operating mechanism still very much the same, and a lot of people then would use the HK416 to contrast with the URG-I. Like, do you want to go internal piston, stick with internal piston, or go the European model of the G36 type gas system or AR180 gas system? Still Stoner, whatever. But it's deceiving, the URG-I. It looks longer than it actually is. It's actually a 14.5, and that's why I was trying to compensate for a little bit more of a drop.
Mm-hmm.
As far as everything goes, I mean, on the quick shoot side, you've shot a lot out of this thing on short range. The gassing, nice.
Yes, chef's kiss. Very nice, very well gassed. Even with the can.
Yeah.
Very nicely gassed.
I mean, and that mid-link system has a lot to do from it. But the funny thing is, I mean, to me, this looks like rifles when I first left the military and what were considered space rifles back then. The non-quad rail, the mid-length gas system with a carbine buffer tube, that's the stuff that you were showing me in 2015 when I was freshly leaving and thinking that, oh, the Block II is the bee's knees, like that is peak AR-15, that is peak M4, and you were showing me this stuff in 2015 already.
Mind you, because we had been shooting them in competition since I started shooting matches.
Right?
Like extended gas system guns. Granted, not 14.5s. That was a newer development in competition. Mm-hmm. But the extended length gas systems on, not necessarily on rifle length buffer setups and stock setups. But yeah, I mean, we were doing that stuff in competition for a long time. And the tubular style front ends, so you could grip them a bit better. You shaved all the weight off the front end of the gun. You didn't have the quad rails and whatnot. And it, at least call it unnecessary weight, I suppose you could say, off the front end of the gun. Yeah, I mean, that's stuff we were doing in 3-gun since the early 2000s, or at least when I got involved in it.
So let's look at it this way, right? I mean, it's a further modernization of the M4 system. That much we know. It's taking the current technology and applying it to the M4 system. Not just current technology, but also experience in running the system and knowing that mid-length is sort of that nice middle ground that you could achieve a smooth cycling system and maintain reliability. Let's apply it back into the topic of SOCOM further modernizing. The Mark 16 versus the M4 Block II, and now a continuation to the URG-I. Obviously, we know which system won out with SOCOM, right?
Rest in peace, Mark 16. Rest in peace.
But then also now you have a contender on that on the HK416, which, CAG and those guys had been running for a while.
Right.
And in this instance, quite frankly, I feel like the non-tier 1 SF guys running the URG-I, quite frankly, for me, that would be my choice over the 416. That's just me. Mm-hmm. Now, that said, the 416 that I also had most time on was the early version with a non-vented gas block that I got to experience afterwards. So my views may change down the road, the more experience I have with the most updated version of the 416. I think it's the A5 now, right? So definitely not the A5. It turns out the HK416A8, also known as the Gewehr 95A1 and the Gewehr 95 Kurz A1, are the newest iteration of the HK416, soon to be distributed by the Bundeswehr.
Yeah, and as we sort of get to that point, now is probably a good place to discuss the specifics of this rifle as it relates to the actual URG-I that SOCOM is utilizing. With the key being this particular upper is a quote unquote like a newer Geissele production that we purchased through Midway. Last year. So 2023 production, or at least it was in stock with them in 2023, and it is a Geissele marked barrel. So when you look at what that actually means, is that, as I believe, and somebody can correct me in the comments, but Geissele is manufacturing the parts for this themselves, and they're Geissele branded parts. The rail, the charging handle, those are NSN marked, but the actual configuration is considered, quote, near clone and not clone correct, because the barrel is not the DD barrel that the SOCOM was issued with these setups.
Okay, so I
there's
have
some other Colt product that's included in the actual version, so on and so forth. So this is the Geissele URG-I, the commercial Geissele product.
It bothers me with parts of the clone community, because a lot of people look at this as in they hold on to words like TDP, and they hold on to things like it has to have X barrel or it has to have X component, without understanding that in a product's life cycle, if there requires replacement parts, if there requires upgrade parts, you can either commercial off-the-shelf purchase things to exchange at the depot level, or you could have contract manufactured equivalent performance items that substitute these things. Classic example is if you look at the 1911s that the CMP reissued out to civilians. A lot of those, and I'm one of the recipients, a lot of guys bought into the CMP 1911s and found that they had replacement slides or replacement internals. The Beretta M9 had a lot of replacement parts onto it. The barrels were not all made by Beretta. The locking pieces were not all made by Beretta. However, they met the standard that the TDP had required them to meet. All right, so I think I need to explain this just a little better. It's not that it was wrong what I said, but it could be misconstrued. In a sense, when I say you could use a substitute part, I don't mean that the soldier could go out and purchase a substitute part as long as it fits a certain requirement. Rather, the supply system in the Army is able to purchase replacement parts that meet the specifications of the certain item. And that would be done at a much higher procurement level. And so if you look at the 1911 that I talked about, specifically this is a 1911A1. It's got a Remington Rand slide or frame. You'll see that it says U.S. Army property on it, U.S. Army M1911. But if you look at the slide and you look at the barrel, and in fact I think the slide stop as well, those are all replacement parts. So those are definitely not made in 1942. And it looks like actually the beaver tail safety and the hammer is also replaced. So this is the only original thing here is probably just the frame, which is the part that is on the property book as the 1911 pistol. Now, how does this tie into what we're talking about? If you look at the slide right here, it has a manufacturer code. Number 2, Uniform 894. That is the manufacturer for DSE. Balamoy is also another name that they do business under. And this slide was basically made by a little machine shop in Florida. I don't know little, but a machine shop in Florida who would turn these out for a government contract. The government does this because it would not make sense to hedge everything on one manufacturer from the beginning to manufacture all those things. Now, when you take into account organizations like SOCOM, they are even outside of the regular Army supply system. They could actually go commercial off the shelf and buy certain things. Like their armorers have the tendency of doing things like this, buying certain things just to make mission. And so when you're saying that the URGI system has to have a Daniel barrel, yes, maybe the initial issue stuff, yes, but follow on down the road, there is a potential possibility that it's not even true. Now, if you look at some other things, this is my Colt 6921. I would say a pretty good representation of a GWAT era M4A1. The barrel is the old style barrel that Colt has, which came off of the same barrel machine in Colt. But if you look at new Colt barrels, those are stamped a little bit different, but they're still Colt barrels. And so it has a cage code on it instead. You can't say that it has to use a Colt barrel in order to meet the same specs. However, potentially some of these old barrels, whether they're worn or not, potentially during wartime manufacture or high demand supply manufacturer times, the specifications could also be slipping a little bit. So you can't necessarily say that this company's brand of barrel would fit, because there's also different eras of procurement and different lots of supplies that go into the supply system. And quite frankly, once you're in service, like if you were a 91F, a 91 Fox, like a small arms repairman, and you were to repair a bunch of small arms, a bunch of URGI uppers, and you had substitute barrels to throw in there. Maybe you threw in a Colt barrel. Maybe you threw in something else. It doesn't matter to the small arms repairman as long as it goes out back into the system and meets that specification that particular piece of equipment meets. And so that muddles the entire story when it comes to the collecting world. Obviously, if you're a collector, you look for period correct stuff. But then with the era of cloning, it's just a little bit even more different of a type of collecting. So that raises a question on what exactly do you want to do with your clone? Are you a collector, or are you someone who is genuinely just wanting to chase the performance, to experience the piece of kit that the U.S. military member had been issued? Because we're no longer in the era where the U.S. government manufactures its own pistols and firearms. And in fact, in this case, you could argue that the commercial replacements are a big indication of that. We are in the era where the Ordnance Corps no longer manufactures its own items and rather goes through procurement to purchase its own items based on the performance metrics and the material used in the firearm itself. So that's a question I will leave to the audience. What is cloning? Is it collecting, or is it trying to duplicate the type of performance that the firearm that was contracted by the U.S. military to manufacture can put out? And so when guys in the cloning side, they talk like they're the project manager. I mean, quite frankly, they're not. I am also not the program manager for these weapon systems. There could be a million different variations of the part that was used, but it had to meet a certain specification in order to be issued. And these are some of those things that you would only know behind closed doors. I'm not saying that I know these specifications. What I'm saying is judging an upper based on it has to have X companies, X or Y or Z, in order to manufacture this product, sometimes it may not be correct. So
that makes sense to me. Or at least it could be partially correct, but maybe not uniformly correct.
Correct. It would be correct in a sense that this was the original contract that was laid out. And if you're trying to clone the original contract, then that makes sense. Now, from the Geissele perspective, if they have a source to manufacture their own barrels, I don't see why a commercial company would not try to, one, control the quality to their own specs, and two, make more profit off of it. I mean, this is America, right?
Let's then explore. Yeah, well, yes. Well, let's then explore the concept of the accuracy and the barrel.
Okay.
So these, to your point, this is a G marked barrel. So this is a Geissele production barrel, not a Daniel Defense barrel. How accurate was it? Well, I mean, obviously it shot the course exceptionally well. But one thing that was very interesting is if you go watch our Geissele accuracy test showdown sort of episode where we put 4 different Geissele uppers against each other, this one, the one in the course, actually printed the worst grouping in that test. And you called it right away when you were shooting it on the range on the day. You said, this isn't right. Something's different. Because when we shot this on the PA course, which we had done previously, you were like, no, it was responding to me in a much more precise way than what the group we just printed was.
Yep.
So we came back and we tested this with the suppressor on as we had shot the course. And it appears that the suppressor makes this rifle materially more accurate.
And
we shrunk the group in a material way. Go ahead.
And that's something that we've seen across the board with a lot of different rifles, that with the suppressor attached, as long as it's not loose. Quick L for the direct thread boys. As long as it's not loose, suppressors we've seen typically has a harmonic dampener. It has a plus effect on the accuracy, meaning the accuracy puts out groups that are more precise with the suppressor attached. Now, point of impact may shift because you've got weight on the end of the barrel. However, that weight, whatever it is, does translate into a more precise system. Now, that's not to say that it applies across the board. Different suppressors, different barrels, different rifles all respond differently. But as a general observation, I've seen that. I think you've seen that too.
More times than not.
Yeah.
More times than not, if the gun is grouping a bit on the wider side than what I would hope, the attachment or affixment of a suppressor tends to draw the group in a bit tighter for the ones that we've tested it on.
Correct, yeah.
Not universally true, but that's usually the first thing I would try.
Yeah.
Is, well, let's see if we put a suppressor on, does it do anything differently? So, in this particular instance, the group with the suppressor attached was just barely over 1 inch for 9 shots on this particular rifle. And on 8 shots, it was, I think, closer to 0.8 inches. So 90% grouping or 88% grouping was closer to 0.8 inches for 8 shots, which is, that's phenomenal accuracy in my opinion, especially for a barrel that's cold hammer forged that should last for forever, and on a quote unquote production gun. I mean, that's very good. And I think a lot of people still, after all this time, after all these years of us putting out groupings and content associated with this, there's still this belief of like, well, no, all ARs are sub-inch guns. And we just don't see that be the case when you do it over extended group sizes. If you do it on a 3-round group, yes, like you can shoot 5 3-round groups, and 2 of them will very well be sub-MOA. But you're doing it over the extended grouping, it materially changes things. In that group, staying at or under an inch is really tight, and that's how you're able to achieve accuracy like this. At least. That's what we're seeing.
Yeah, see, so this kind of goes into, the long-standing thing of why we do high round count groups, is because this is how we this is how we are able to see a difference between certain different products or certain different specimens of the rifles. A lot of times you'll see people argue about, during this trial, you had this one procedure that wasn't fair. Well, if you imagine the review world as a larger trial, right? And you have people saying, oh, ARs are 1 MOA or better, but the method of testing is just not uniform. Some people, of course, are going to see that. And then even worse, you're going to get people who want to see these really cheap ARs be sub MOA, so they shoot 5 of them and just use 2 of them and say that it's that grouping all day long. We've been posting every single group of this rifle that, well, not every single one of them, but every single one that we have clocked on the 9-shot group, I believe Josh has posted online. And I think that says a lot about the system, because we're also contrasting between 4 different uppers in order to get very similar results. I mean, that is going above and beyond to figuring out the accuracy potential of a product. And quite frankly, these are expensive uppers, yes. But I think they're expensive to meet certain specifications that some other uppers don't necessarily need to meet. And that's okay. Yeah. I'm not saying it's not okay. That's okay. Like, you don't need a Porsche Cayenne to haul groceries. You just don't.
So really quick, I'll throw out a few numbers here and we can do some overlays, Henry, on some of the data. So this rifle printed a 2.9-inch 9-shot grouping without the suppressor, and a 1.5-inch 90% grouping. So there was a very obvious flyer in the group, but we shot the group multiple times, and that flyer was in the group each time we tried it. So that was enough for us to say, yeah, that wasn't us. It wasn't Henry on the trigger pull. This is legitimately what we were seeing, and that's the size of the group that we're going with. Now, that shrunk to 1 inch, or just a touch over 1 inch, and 0.8 inches for the 100% and 80% grouping on this particular rifle. That is a material improvement with the suppressor. The other URG-Is that Henry's referencing, we can go link you to that video as well. All of these guns were shooting insanely tight, 90% groupings, like inch and a quarter, sub-inch groups. By comparison, our M4 Block II also shot a phenomenal group. Now, we only have 1 sample of that one, not 4, but that one shot a phenomenal group. It was 1.5 MOA for 100% and 1.27 MOA for 90%.
You know,
that's a phenomenal group for 9 shots. That's very good.
The funny thing about that is, for the DD, ironically, for the Daniel Defense video, people were crying foul because it did not have a Colt SOCOM weight barrel in it. And then for the URG-I, you would have people saying that the one being sold by Geissele doesn't have the Daniel Defense barrel.
And Henry, if you recall, the M4 Block II that we shot with the Colt SOCOM barrel actually grouped slightly larger than the DD at 1.6 for 9 shots and 1.5 for 90%. So again, like, to the end of this entire conversation, the URG-Is, any of the premium ARs out there, you're going to get phenomenal groupings out of. The URG-Is, we have been particularly impressed with the groupings that they've been able to put out. This one, with the suppressor attached, was at the top. Just like it was very close to, we shot a Super Duty, 16-inch Super Duty that also is very similar in group size. But anytime that you're putting 9 rounds in 1 inch, that is going to translate to exactly what was demonstrated on this course. Henry we made the right wind calls, we made the right adjustments. Henry made the right elevation adjustment at 725 or whatever it was, and the round is going to go where you put it, and that is the maximum value of having a gun that shoots like this. A reminder is, Henry, can you take a Block 1 M4 and clear this course with little to no misses?
No. Even with 77s, I do not have that confidence.
That deviation, that slight deviation from like no, this is legitimately on par with a precision gas gun, to, no, this is just really effective from a combat accuracy perspective. That's the difference between, I think, what we're talking about here, right?
I think the way I would approach this is to look at the URG-I was what, a 2018 project, I believe.
16, 17, I think.
Okay, so
somebody will correct us.
Yeah. Tell us if you know. 15 years prior to this, you were looking at the Mark 12. That was the best thing ever for this type of shooting. Nowadays, we are using a 14.5-inch URG-I upper and rivaling the performance of the Mark 12. Now, granted, we're using 77s, the same type of ammunition. But the performance pushed out by the URG-I rivals the Mark 12. So the interesting thing there is you've basically got uppers that are shorter, that can, with the change of the optic, potentially duplicate the performance of the entire Mark 12 special purpose receiver. And that, I think, is the biggest advancement that we're seeing right here, is this one upper is able to merge your assaulter with your, let's say, improvised marksman, and giving the SOCOM operator even more capability, even more lethality on the range. And to me, that itself is amazing.
What a way to wrap this session up, Henry. What a way to wrap it up. So, gang, we hope you enjoyed this perfect course run with Henry just activating aimbot and making it happen here. Again, as a reminder, because people tell us this in every video, we bought the rifle. This wasn't a hand select. Nobody gave it to us. Geissele isn't paying us to tell you this. We just actually got it, and we're really impressed. Very similar to how we were really impressed when we...
You got
Stop it. Stop it. You stop it. Very similar to how we were very impressed when we got the Block II setup from that we also purchased. We're not given that one either, and also shot a phenomenal run with it on the course.
You also bought the Block II.
Henry, I have a sickness for ARs. You know this. Listen, roller delayed man, you keep it quiet over there. So, just remember that, gang. We're not trying to tell you that you need to go spend money with a certain company here. We're excited about the results that we're able to get, because these are some of the best results we've been able to bring forward on this course thus far. And that's ultimately why we started doing the show and why we continue to do the show, because of moments like this where we go out and we're like, this is going to be good. But holy crap, was this good?
Yeah, obviously, the only one rival it has is the Russian Spetsnaz AK-105, right?
Yeah, yes, clearly. Clearly the only rival. Dude, you were just a beast that day. You were just
It was
both
good.
of these filmed on the same day. For Henry floated on the way home.
Yeah, it just worked. It just worked. Stuff worked. It's good.
All right, gang. If you're still with us, we appreciate those of you who hang out to the end of the session. You are the OGs. Make sure to go ahead and check us out on the Patreon. Hop into the private Discord. Chat with us direct. Ask the questions that you wish we would answer. And, of course, do all the great YouTube stuff if you don't mind. Like, comment, make sure you're subscribed, hit the notification bell, check out Slate Black Industries. And until next time, we'll see you on the range.
716 is 096, 4 Vic, 8 packs, Redcon 1, green to green. How copy, over?
096, this is 716, roger, over. 16, 091, 1 pack,